Hashtag WeAreMovieClub.
Hey there, We Are Movie Club. I'm Cameron, and this week's pick is She's All of That. This is a review for week 47 of hashtag WeAreMovieClub. This week's pick was mine, whether you want to believe it or not. So the short sell on this one is that the most popular guy in school bets his dorky-ass friend that he can turn anyone into the prom queen. His dorky-ass friend bets that he can't turn the least popular girl, for a multitude of reasons that aren't directly explained, into the prom queen. There's some other things involved here that you kind of need to know for it to make sense, but as a basic premise, those are the skinny bits. My love it for this one is by far the Kiss Me staircase scene, which is notably known to be the cheesiest thing ever in teen rom-coms, and it's constantly referenced in parody movies and other places as something that's hokey and stupid that you shouldn't do. But the original, if nothing else, we'll get to that on my next pick. But the original, that was beautiful. Not only does Rachel Lee Cook look gorgeous throughout the entire movie, almost honestly would have dated the paint nerd when I was in high school, but that whole scene is great. It shows her trying to be brave in the face of anxiety, and she now is equipped into this new world that she's never seen before, it's wonderful. And that last little bit of the scene, and I don't want to ruin it for you if you actually haven't seen it, was a beautiful, beautiful touch, and I really liked it. My dislike for it, there are a few little things throughout the movie that bother me, and they're mostly like inconsistencies in timing, but by far is when Clea Duvall's in the bathroom, like Rachel Lee Cook's at the party, and she's looking for the bathroom, and she finally finds it, and surprisingly there's no line, and it might be because Clea Duvall's passed out in the toilet. Rachel Lee Cook opens the door, Clea Duvall immediately looks up and goes, "Splatter girl?" No. She did not have enough time to recognize it, even if she was secretly in love with Lainey Boggs and memorized her voice. That drunk where you're like living in the toilet? No, I don't think so. The MVP for this one, without a doubt, was Rachel Lee Cook. She is this movie. Not only is she the subject matter, she's the protagonist in my perspective of the movie. We kind of have this douchey Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character that he's the lead story, he's the one driving a lot of the things, but she's the focus throughout the entire thing to me. And to me, she's the main character. He's just a precursor. But I tend to look at movies where they can be about the events happening and not necessarily the character. So the lead character is the event of all this. It's the movie, the movie focusing on the event, not necessarily characters. But if I have to learn it down, that's where I see it. He's just an acting force, and they both do a good job. But Rachel Lee Cook is definitely the character not only that I sympathize, empathize, and relate to more, but she's definitely who I see being the lead actress and focus in here, and she does a bang-up job as Lainey Boggs. Let's get on to the categories. Aesthetics. I'm going to be honest, it's not the best looking movie. It's not the worst by far, but there's not any cool special effects. There's no guys flipping off motorcycles and helicopters. It's filmed at a high school with rich kids in their shitty houses, and Lainey's house is the most relatable out of any of them. It's the only house that looks relatively normal, and they still have a pool in the backyard, which is fine, because the guy is a pool guy, so he probably has hookups. We see a lot of stuff, and this is a movie definitely written, made, and produced in the 90s. It came out in 99, but you can hear it in the music, you can see it in the styles. They're talking about real world, back when it was still relevant. I know it's still on now, but it's on this exclusive M3 channel or something, and it's just cut that way. And it's got the stylization where it's doing some neat stuff here and there, where they're walking through a scene that's existing in the past, and They've got that dream sequence where they're all in the real world, but it's them and not the real world cast, and he's got that dream. I think Matthew Lillard's hitting on Freddie Prinze Jr. It's just so funny. But there's a lot of like physical humor throughout. There's like the whole thing where Taylor Vaughn's licking Brock. There's those specific dialogue that you hear that resonates. The whole rap thing where she's all that, which made a decent commercial / teaser or whatever for the movie. You little things like hearing like all the alternative groups that are supporting Laney Boggs, like the Prisoners Club, just showing the general attitude of the characters and the delivery of the line, not necessarily like what it is. Like the whole thing with Taylor Vaughn's going on about like who's going to be Taylor Vaughn. It didn't matter what she was saying. That's the fact that she was doing this, and she was talking like this, and you're not going to be a bitch, but who's going to be Taylor Vaughn? Just that attitude, that voice, that delivery. And that was a very important part of the scene. I don't know how you write that, other than like, hey, just be a bitch and we'll tell you until you get it right. But I think this was really well casted. I think that had a lot to do with it. They all had like the looks for it. And Rachel Lee Cook, up to that point, I think might have done a couple small bits, but she was most famous for the "Don't Do Drugs" at that point. But I think she just fit the role so well to be able to transfix from this thing to that thing, and she delivered like the emotions really well. So I think aesthetically, as you're looking through everything, it definitely helped with everything going on. Aesthetics gets a 90. Character development. Outstanding character in this. Not only do I really get behind Laney Boggs, I totally relate to that sort of character. And I understand the popular kids and whatever, except for maybe Taylor Vaughn. I don't get that animal. Her friends are okay. Like I get those characters, but Taylor Vaughn does make a great villain in a movie where you don't really have that many opportunities for villains. You got douchey best friend and Taylor Vaughn, and they definitely don't work together. I guess Brock would probably be an antagonist at least, if not a villain. He definitely helps crop up certain parts of the movie. Most of it's just society. It's all societal standards. It's the reason she doesn't fit in is because of her detachment from everything, that she can't focus on herself, so she doesn't find those bits to relate to the other kids. She doesn't have the money. She doesn't have... There's all these things that they tell you very subtly. There's very subtle character development in this, almost to the point where I would say it's not unique, but it's rare, where they construct backwards. They give you the initial thing, and from that you supplement character backstory. So you're actually supposed to get the backstory passively through the characters acting through, and that's very hard to do. A lot of movies don't bother to do that because the audience doesn't always follow. It's much easier to be like, well, here's what I want to tell you, and here's the building blocks you're going to make to make this character. Whereas, very much like Odd Thomas that we saw a couple weeks ago, the characters are developed by you getting them and then constructing their backstory into what's happening based on what you know them to be. And I really, really enjoyed that. Character development gets a 93. Storyline. Like I told Charlie on the Hangout, I really do like romantic comedies. I think they're my #1 genre. It's my favorite feel-good genre, for sure, because I watch a lot of dramatic stuff that does kind of bring you down after you saturate in it for a while. But this is something that makes me feel really good about things. I like romance to a certain extent. There's some things that are ridiculously goofy, and I don't get it. But I like the idea of two people being able to find that connection together and make things work in adversity. And this has that in spades, especially with the idea of opening up and experiment with people that you don't think you would normally associate yourselves with as much. So that right there is because there's this whole idea that Laney Boggs is some depressed, homicidal monster deep down, and maybe some kids like to poke at it, like we have the artist folk, and then other people just evade. But if you really think there's a monster in your midst, you make friends with the monster, and it's a better world. And at 90% of the time, it's probably not really a monster. And the 10% where it is a monster, you're damn lucky to be on their side. I'm just saying. This is one of those things where he opened up possibilities, and that's what he's looking at when he's looking at colleges too. So there's this great metaphor between the two actions of redefining your future and what's going to be in it, and do you really want to be doing the same thing that you've been doing for however long? Because tomorrow is not just tomorrow, it's like the future, you know? Storyline gets a 95.
Compulsion.
Look, I'll be honest, it does have some downsides of where you're tracking what's going on. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens within about 24 hours. There's a reference to him being around her, like, all the time, when it's very obvious it's not the case at all. So there's a lot of things that are just inconsistent because it was written for the script and they didn't adjust it into the actualization of the movie and the sequence of events, which is fine, and maybe the guy's just dumb, but it pops up here and there. But it's like, I don't know, like, it's like someone dropped a potato chip on your cake. You can brush that off, get rid of the icing that it hit maybe, just so it's not tainting it, and you eat the cake, and it's great. I love this movie. I get behind it a lot. I can watch it again right now. And I'll be honest, it's hard to get tired of looking at Rachel Lee Cook. Not only is she very pretty, but she's a great actress, and I've got a special spot for her. It's just one of those things that I'll watch her in probably anything if I get the chance to, and it's always worth it to me. Compulsion gets a 96. Now you've told all that up, you get an average of 93.5. For my review, I've got to say this is probably my favorite romantic comedy ever. Definitely my favorite teen rom-com. Barely missing 10 Things I Hate About You, because that was a really good one. And for those of you who hate teen dramas, like Charlie, this and 10 Things I Hate About You are probably the reasons why you hate them, because they did so well, because they were so amazing. And movies like Get Over It, that actually have some quality behind it, because they're based on Shakespeare. Those led the charge in the teen rom-coms in the late 90s, early aughts, and there's been 100 teen rom-coms since, and everybody got friggin' tired of them pretty quick, I'll be honest. And so the generation after me, which Charlie's probably part of, didn't like them as much, because by the time that he got age appropriate or target audience, whatever you want to call it, it'd been played out. I got in on the ground floor. I enjoyed it. So I get nice nostalgia when I watch these types of movies. And hell, maybe it brings me back to a good time of sitting on the couch with the girl back when it was fun to make out, and that was all that happened. I don't know. But this was a review for #WeAreMovieClub. This week's pick was mine. If you didn't like this movie, stay tuned, because in a couple weeks, I promise you, we're going to do Not Another Teen Movie, and you'll get to make fun of every single instance of stupid teen dramas along with us. Because next week, Charlie is doing something very different, but not too different from one of his previous picks. He's going to put us back in a submarine for The Hunt for Red October. It's got Connery in it. You gotta give it up for Sean, but it has submarines, so it needs to weigh out. Being as this is not planned to be a funny movie, like Down Periscope was, I'm skeptical, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity for them to prove me wrong. That's it for me. Have a nice day, and I am Cameron.
Be sure to go check out all the fine folks that are involved in this video. Thanks for watching.